go. Pause. All right, folks. So this is so exciting for me. We got Matt Antonelli online here from Georgetown, Massachusetts, of all places, where they're expecting some snow tomorrow. And Matt, he just does a a fantastic YouTube channel, which we'll get into here in just a second. I can't remember how I came across him, Matt. Just obviously YouTube put you in front of me, and I like freaking binge watching your stuff because I enjoyed immensely. But Matt, welcome aboard. Just give us the story of Matt, and we'll just go from there if that's okay. Tell us who you are, everything that goes on with Matt Antonelli.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Matt Antonelli. I guess it's a long story. I'll try to keep it short, but
brother. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I grew up playing every sport known to man. Ended up going to college to play baseball at Wake Forest University. I got drafted there in what year would that be? 2006. Got drafted by the San Diego Padres. Was fortunate enough to make my major league debut in 2008. Had an 8-year career. Ended up playing for 5 different teams. Kind of bounced all over the place. And when my career finally ended playing-wise, I got into coaching, coached college for a little while, started Antonelli Baseball, which I'm still currently doing, which is basically a travel organization for 10 to 18-year-old youth players, just looking to improve their game and play as long as they can. And that's what I'm doing right now. Started my YouTube channel a long time ago, and it's evolved from instructional stuff to just baseball stories, and now playing video games and all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun staying around the game. That's what really the only thing I know is baseball, and so I'll stay in it as long as I can.
Now on the baseball travel team, are you like a coach of a travel team, through Massachusetts, and you got tournaments all over the country or something like that? Is that how it works?
Yeah, so basically our local players will play in a local league, which is basically mostly Massachusetts, a little bit of New Hampshire and Maine, but we pretty much stay within an hour and a half drive. And then for our older teams, I personally coach one of our younger teams. I coach our 13s, and then I also coach our 17s. And then I run the practices and everything else for all the teams. But our older teams, our main goal is to get them to go on and play college baseball. Everyone that plays with us pretty much wants to do that. And so we'll travel a lot more. Like we'll be down every summer down to Atlanta, Georgia. We play in a big tournament there, and we've been basically all over the place. Okay. So it's a lot of fun.
And that is someone is interested in just AntonelliBaseball.com or something like that? Or okay, got it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the best place to go. We have all our information as far as our teams and schedule, and everything that we do is right up there.
And I'll put links in the show notes and everything. Now, you're married with kids, so were you married to your wife before you became professional baseball, or did you get married after? You don't have to go too deep into detail, but was your wife? Did she know she's gonna be a wife of a baseball guy?
Yeah, so we dated throughout my playing career. We ended up getting married right towards the end of it, and then my son was born. He's 5 now. He was born right when I got out of playing and got into coaching, and then my daughter was born almost 3 years ago. So she's been on the road with me. She kind of knows the lifestyle of a professional baseball player, and now coach, I guess.
Is she from Massachusetts as well?
Yeah, she is.
Okay. Gotcha. So living in Massachusetts isn't foreign to her, being from like South Carolina or something. You know what I'm saying?
No, although I think we're both about at the point where we'd like to move someplace warmer, but I don't know. We'll see. Maybe in a few years. We got so much, we have so much built up with Antonelli Baseball. We'll do that for a while. Maybe start Antonelli Baseball South at some point down the road.
Right on, man. Right on. Absolutely. You did a video on, and I actually mimicked it on my own YouTube channel, but you did a video on greatest memories, not necessarily of you playing, but and it was awesome because I'm telling you talked about Dave Roberts stealing second base in the 2004 was it ALCS? No, or maybe division. I can't remember. And Matt, I remember that like it was yesterday because I'll never forget when Dave Roberts, he subbed for what's his name? He got in, he stole second base. And the camera panned to this kid in the stands, and he was like, "Yeah!" Like going like this. And I remember thinking, I'm a little bit older than you, but born and raised a Sox fan. I was like, "What are you happy about? You know it's going to end in misery." Right. I'll never forget that. I always want to say to that kid, whoever it was, going, "Yeah!" If they ever, and I say that was the most, even more than David Tyree, killing the Pats. That was
Hmm.
probably the most amazing sporting play of my life. And I was chuckling when you talked about that because no one else ever recognizes how important that stolen base was and how it just led to where we're. It just is insane. I just anyway. I
Yeah.
always want to say thanks for that because that was. I thought it was crazy. I was like, why does no one else see how important this is?
Yeah, it was amazing. I remember it. I was in college at that time, and the season before ended so tragically with the home run by Aaron Boone, and then we go to the next year and down 3-0, and just like we're never ever ever getting one, and then to have that kind of flip the script was amazing.
Well, you had mentioned in the season before how you were going crazy, and I think the dorms at Wake or something like
Yeah.
that. Like, yeah, you guys, and next thing you know, Aaron Boone. I was like, and it's funny because that was literally the night I got 4 kids. My second daughter was born, and so I say her name's Chloe. I said, Chloe, you're the reason the Red Sox have all these World Series because up until you were born, we were losing to the Yankees like the Bruins against Canadians. And you're born, and all of a sudden we get all these World Series wins. So, and I say we because I'm part of the team, of course. And,
Absolutely, me too.
I know you do too. Right. We're actually on the field. All right. So when you did you know that baseball was it? You're good at football too. I mean, did like when you grew up in Massachusetts was just how did you know baseball over these other sports? I mean, side what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think so. I played in high school. I played football, I played baseball, and I played hockey, and I really enjoyed them. I enjoyed them all. I really, really loved all 3 sports. I love every sport. Football might actually be my favorite sport, but so I got to the point where I had to decide what I wanted to do in college. I just wanted to pick one sport. I didn't want to try to play multiple. And honestly, I love them all. So it wasn't, I'm going to do baseball because I love that more than the other sports.
Right.
But I just thought that if my ultimate goal was to play at the highest level, I just tried to self-evaluate, my skill set and said, I think baseball is the sport that I could play professionally more than those other 2 sports, and that's the road I chose.
When you were like younger, obviously, it wasn't as specialized as now. So you're able to play 3 different sports. Did you know like when you're in 8th grade, 6th grade, something like that you like being an athlete and baseball? I don't want to say baseball is the way to go, but did you go to various camps for football, various camps for basketball, hockey, various camps for baseball, or you just played whatever came, or were you like really specialized, kind of like the kids are today?
Yeah, I played everything.
Okay.
I played those 3 sports. I played basketball in high school too. I couldn't play for my high school team, so because of playing hockey for my high school team. But I went and played like CYO basketball.
Yeah,
I just wanted to play. I just wanted to play sports. That's just kind of it's been what I've been good at for most of my life. I grew up kind of in an athletic family. My dad played a lot of sports, and so when we were younger, we were just my mom was driving me from sport to sport to sport. That's just kind of what we did. And it's a little bit different today. We still have some players that play a lot of sports, but there are a lot of kids that just specialize in one. And so, I tell kids, hey, if you love all the sports, play them all. I mean, I would regret it looking back if I had, I almost actually did. People talked to me my senior year and said, man, you should really think about quitting football because you could get hurt. And I thought about it for a while. And honestly, if I had done that, I mean, my senior year of football was one of my most memorable years of any team I've been on. And so I know I would have probably regretted it looking back if I had done that. So I say, if you love them, play them. There'll come a time when they tell you, you know what, can't play them anymore. Right. And so you might as well, when you can, you might as well go for it and play them.
What position were you at football?
So I was like, on defense, I was a cornerback. And on offense, I was kind of like, I guess a wing back. I was a little bit tailback, a little bit wide receiver, kind of moved all over the place, ran the option at quarterback a little bit. So it was, all over the place.
Yeah. So that could, I mean, obviously football is, you could get injured, but hell, people get, I mean, your own baseball career, you got injured too. It happens all the time. I'm just curious, what do you think about like I was born in the 70s and everyone just played, it wasn't that much specialization and all that. And, down here in Georgia, like you got girls and kids too, but my oldest are 2 girls, and just they're like focused on one sport, like lacrosse. Lacrosse is big down here. It's like from the minute they're 6 years old, they get a lacrosse stick put in. I always say to myself, man, that just sounds so repetitive and boring. Like not to get exposed to different sports. I don't think it can be good for. Yeah, this is just my opinion, man. I don't know, but I don't know if it's just not being introduced to other. Just not in sports, but other things. I just wonder if it's good for the psyche of these kids because they might get burned out. And B, if you get hurt, you're kind of SOL. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I like what you
Sure.
said about just play the different sports, because at some point you'll know that you have to choose something. But do you see that today? More and more kids kind of being told by parents, like, I want you to be this. And I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, I think that, a couple of things. One, the availability of sports year round has really increased. I mean, there's so many, at least in our area, there's so many travel everything.
Yeah.
And, and I understand I run a program. And so I know that sometimes when you're running a travel sports, just say it's baseball, that in your mind, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And, it's most important to you. And so sometimes I think coaches, they think that the players should really focus in on their sport, and that's fine. There's certain kids, if you love baseball and you've tried other sports and you don't like them, then I say, yeah, go ahead, play baseball all year round. So I do think that's part of it. The youth sports especially has become a business, like a really big business, and when I was younger, it wasn't like that. And I'm not saying it's been great in many ways. I mean, there's more indoor facilities for us up here. Kids that love baseball can play all year round. But I just make sure that even though I'm in the baseball business, that I don't try to tell kids, hey, listen, you've got to be playing in the winter and in the spring and in the, all year round.
Right.
And with that, I think sometimes, I'll hear it a lot. I'll work with young kids as young as 9, 10 years old, and a lot of parents are really focused in on, hey, he wants to play in the major leagues. And I'm like, well, that's terrific, but let's slow down a little bit here because he's 10, and, let's teach him how to have fun and catch first, and then we'll work on the major league part later. So that's part of it also. But as much as you see that, I still see we're lucky. I'm sure. We have a lot of great parents that kind of get it, and not all of them do, but we do have a lot. And I try to tell my story, because sometimes people think, well, if he doesn't play baseball year round, he can't play in the major leagues, or he's not going to get a college scholarship. And I tell people that I played every sport that every sport invented, basically, and I had an opportunity to go on and play at a high level. So it's not impossible. You can do it. You can have fun as a kid and play a bunch of sports and still have a chance to go on to a high level.
Well, I'm wondering about that 10-year-old, if he wants to go to majors, or if his parents, his dad is like,
sure.
Yeah, I've done just pee-wee coaching, for like soccer. There's some dads out there, I'm like, dude, they're literally 5 years old, man. Pipe down, big guy, because let's just go out there and have some fun. If the kid's good at it and wants to continue on, that's fine. But just, my goodness, I don't know how you don't start drop kicking some of these parents. Like, dude, let me be the coach. You relax. But that's just my personality. People just drive me up the wall in that regard. You're obviously a lot more laid back, which is cool. But I don't know how you deal with that. I'd be like, oh my goodness. Like, for instance, just you don't have to, don't say anything, but I want my kid to be a starting pitcher. You're like, well, I don't know. That'd be a challenge. But so in the travel stuff, that's your full-time gig. I mean, I got a dog who comes back and forth a little, Chiweenie. Does your wife work? And there's a reason I'm asking for that. Does she work, or she stay home, watch the kids, or what's the story?
So she did work when she was pregnant with my son. She hasn't gone back to work since then, but she does. I shouldn't say that. She'd yell at me if I said that. She does the finance and all that with the business. So she takes care of that side of it. And then I try to run, the baseball part of it. So she is working from home and working for Antonelli Baseball.
So you are literally self-employed entrepreneur then?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you do for health insurance? That's always the question, because I'm self-employed. The first question people ask is health insurance. What do you guys do as self-employed? You got to buy it on your own, and you got children too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And she takes care of all that. All I know is it is really expensive. And that was the one nice thing when I got into college coaching. Having health insurance and being covered, and then getting out of that and having to get it on our own, wasn't fun, but. But yeah, I mean, it costs a decent amount of money, but luckily the business has done well, and so we're doing okay.
How's the business in this, with the coronavirus stuff?
Sure.
I mean, we can't do anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So how's you taking a setback? Is just delaying, hanging in place, but it looks like everything's gonna be okay once this is behind us, or what do you think?
Yeah, so there's a lot of unknowns right now. I mean, our season is on hold. We should be out there playing right now, and we can't. So basically, the leagues that we play in are all on hold. They're hoping that we'll play at some point this summer. I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see. Tournaments that we're playing in this summer have all told us that they're gonna same thing, wait and see mode. And so we're trying to figure that out right now. I've been doing a lot of online stuff. I've been sending a lot of videos to our kids. We try to cover a couple different topics each week. We have kind of programs for them to do at home to make sure they're staying in shape and staying ready in case we are able to get out soon.
Yeah.
And then, we're going to see what happens this summer. And then we typically have our tryouts for next year's team in July or August. And so I'm hoping that we're able to get outside and do that. If we're not, we'll have to get creative and figure out a way, what are we going to do for next season? But I guess we'll come to that when we finally get there. But as of right now, just trying to make sure that the kids are because they all want baseball. And I know we get a lot of, I talk to a lot of parents and they're saying, we're sitting at home and we can only go out and do a few things, and they want to get out there and play. And so I'm just trying to come up with new ways for them to stay engaged and stay busy. And with no baseball on TV, really no sports at all. I know it can be tough.
I mean, it's literally, it's nuts. We've never been through this. Out on, so let me ask you a question. So when you're conducting tryouts, that inherently means you got cut kids, and you can cut yourself, obviously, at some point, in terms of, you get demoted from, triple A to double A or whatever, I guess major leagues to triple. Man, that's gotta be tough, dude. How do you tell a kid, like, I don't see a place for you here? I mean, I don't know how a coach does it. I literally, how do you do that?
So that's the worst part of the job by far.
Yeah.
Like you said, I've been released 3-4 times in my life. I know it's the worst feeling in the world, and I was a grown man when it happened, so I can only imagine what it feels like for a young kid to do it. The way that I explain it to the parents and to the players is, number one, we don't want to have, I don't want to have to do that to anybody. I know that that's terrible. But I say, and some don't believe me, but this is the honest truth. In the best interest of the player, our goal as a business is not just to take as many kids as we can and try to throw teams together just so that we can collect payments from parents. I said when we started the business and started the teams, I said that I want the talent on the teams to be very similar, right? I don't want to have one kid that's fantastic and another kid that can't catch.
Right.
And so it's not fair to either one of them, in my opinion. And so, we tell them that we're trying to put the best team together possible, and we don't always get everything right. But if we decide that a player isn't a good fit for the team, then we just tell them, listen, we would love you to play. We just don't have any room. And I think your best opportunity, because in our area, there's hundreds of teams to try out for. I say, I think that another team would do you best as development is concerned. And we've had, that's an uncomfortable conversation. And sometimes people get mad at us, but I just try to be honest. And I tell them I'm not, I don't get this right every time. I mean, that kid maybe he makes the team and he ends up being one of our better players, maybe, but unfortunately we can't keep everyone. That's just the way our business model is. That's the way I want to do it. There's teams that just, they take every single kid, regardless how good or bad they are, and they'll take, they want the tuition and that's it. And then parents get upset when that happens. And so I told them, we don't want that. We don't want to be in that predicament. So that's kind of how we do it right now. We have expanded. When we first started, we had one team at each age level, and we did get to the point where this past year, we had maybe 80 kids trying out for a single age group, and all 13 kids want to come back. And so we were getting to the point where we were saying no to almost every kid coming to tryouts, which is a little bit crazy. So we did create a second team on some of those age groups to allow more kids to play. But even with that, we still had to say no to, 40, 50 kids, which is a lot of kids to have to tell they can't make a team. So it's difficult for sure. And it is the worst part of it, but it gets a little bit easier as we continue to go. And I'm getting a little bit better at being able to I'm going to get yelled at every now and then. And so I've got to deal with that also. And I've gotten used to it.
Well, especially when you're saying I'm turning away 40 to 50 kids that were tuition-paying clients, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's like, ooh, you're like, I could, you know what I'm saying? Because I know for a fact, even down here, we got people who will take your tuition just so you can ride the pine. I know that for a fact, and they're never going to see the field whatsoever. how about getting cut or getting released and demoted? I mean, did you know that was going to your own career? So, man, I mean, you made the major leagues, dude. You had a hit in the major leagues. I think you even had a home run in the major leagues.
I did, yes,
Okay.
one.
Yeah, no, right on. But I mean, that's pretty cool. And so,
Sure.
but at some point, someone had to say, we don't have. I mean, not just major leagues, but just how did that feel by saying, Matt, we don't have a place for you? And that, man,
Yep.
what do you do then? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's really tough. I was released, or there's a lot of different ways. I was non-tender, which basically means they take you off the 40-man. But almost pretty much every team I played for, at some point they said, we no longer really want you. It happened with the Padres.
Yeah.
When I was with the Nationals, I didn't get released, but they didn't sign me back after the year. They said go somewhere else. The Orioles designated me for assignments, so they sent me away. The Yankees released me, and the Indians released me. So it happened everywhere I went, and the first time it happened, you're a little surprised by it, because I personally had never been cut from a team my whole life.
Right. I imagine you've always been, top shelf, and all of a sudden you're like, sure. I mean, that's got to be hard. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah. It's definitely tough. I think when it happened first, when the Nationals didn't want to re-sign me, I was, I guess, a little bit surprised, but also I was young enough where I said, well, I got another, there's a lot of other teams in the league that'll sign me. Later in my career, when I got released, honestly, I wasn't playing very well. I was injured a lot. And so I think maybe that helped me realize or accept it a little bit more, that I said, yeah, I can kind of get it here. I'm not playing great and I haven't been healthy. When I got released that final time by Cleveland, it is weird when no one else wants you. That was the first time in my life where I didn't get a single call from a major league organization. The only teams that called were independent ball leagues, which are basically, they're not affiliated with Major League Baseball, but they are considered professional baseball. But it's a decent drop from pro ball to where I was at to where I would have went. And I decided ultimately, I decided not to play independent ball, and I decided to just stop playing. And some of that was, if you look at my statistics, I mean, I think I missed almost half of my games during my career because of injury. Yeah. And after a while, that just mentally, not only physically, mentally, probably more than anything, it really starts to get you down. And, having the rehab after surgeries, I had 4 surgeries during my career. It's a lot of times people don't see what goes on when you're trying to come back from injuries, but it takes a toll on you. And especially when you're trying to come back and then, you're not able to practice. When I've got casts on my wrist, I can't practice. Well, then when I finally come back, I've missed a lot of time. I realize other guys have been working hard, and I haven't been able to do anything. They're getting better. I'm getting worse. So it is really, really tough. Like I said, I'm glad that I had something that I could go to, which was coaching, which I'm really passionate about. I think that helps the transition. Some guys get released and they don't know what to do. I can't imagine that happening. That's got to be extremely tough. But I got lucky, and I jumped right into coaching, and I love it. A lot of people say, would you go back and play right now? And honestly, I'm so happy with what I'm doing. Yeah. I don't know if I would go back and play,
Well, I had rotator cuff surgery in June, you know what I'm saying? And I'm literally just getting back under the bar about 2 weeks ago, and I'll never do bench press again. But I mean, I was at my peak, and it just it's like literally seeing the drop, and it's still, I mean, you know what I'm saying? And the idea, that's just me getting back, my own personal wants. But if the other guys I'm competing with for slots, I've been playing for those 6 to 12 months, and you're just like, you've had this cast on. I mean, you're falling behind. Well, it's exponentially. It's like going like that. Well, I don't know if that's the right word, but I mean, that's
sure.
And then you might want to come back too early. You know what I'm saying? And if you come back too early, you're doomed. When all right, so now you get released from the Nationals. So does another team just pick up the phone and say? I mean, I obviously got an agent, I presume. So they call us, hey, we're interested in Matt. They just find on the wire, they read the wire, whatever the wire thing is called. They say, hey, all right, your agent, Matt, just got released. We'd like to give him a tryout or something like that. Is that how it works?
So everything goes through my agent. So my agent would always call me and tell me kind of what he's hearing, who he's talked to. Once we kind of narrow it down, then I would typically get on the phone and talk with those few teams. Okay. They want to get to know me a little better, and I kind of want to see what the situation is, what would be my opportunity, all that. And so that's technically how it works now. And they don't, there's no tryout or anything like that. They basically are going to judge it off of what they saw the previous season. So they've got scouts that are watching not only major league games, but minor league games. And so they're getting reports on players all the time. And so they're going to go off of that. The only thing they really ask is, are you healthy? And with me, I had to talk a lot about that because every off season, pretty much I was having some type of surgery. And so once they feel comfortable, they put their offer out there, and then I talk with my agent. I figure out where's the best spot for me to hopefully get back to the major leagues, and I make that choice. And each year it was with a different team. I played with the Padres for, let's see, 06, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So 5 years with the Padres, and then my last few years, it was just 1 year with each team. And so I just bounced around trying to find a spot where I could get back to the major leagues. I never got to get there with any of those other teams.
So you're in their like minor league organization? Yep. Okay. So here's a guy who hits a home run in the major leagues, you know what I'm saying? And are you playing AAA with the Orioles? Okay, so you're playing in I forgot the Orioles AAA team. Frederick? No, I can't remember. But anyway, so you're playing
Orioles, I was going to say it was Norfolk, Virginia was where I was with the Orioles.
So you're playing AAA, and then you get released, and they say, okay, now Cleveland calls, and then you're like, we don't want, and then no one else calls. I mean, but thankfully you had coaching as a back, as a starting point. You say, okay, I can at least go to this, because you were coaching a little bit in the interim while you're playing minor league baseball, Matt, or you literally had you just said, I'm going to try coaching. I mean, how did that work? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So my dad is he's still currently a high school coach. He coaches at my old high school.
Okay.
And he also, now he coaches with the Antonelli baseball also, but before that he had been a travel ball coach for different organizations. And so when I would come home in the off season, the off season typically goes, say, October until, February when you go to spring training. So when I would get home for those months in the off season, I'd work out and hit and all that stuff, but there's still a lot of downtime. And so I would go and help my dad coach his teams. They'd have their, what we call winter workouts going on. And that's where I kind of realized that I enjoyed coaching. I enjoyed coaching younger kids,
right.
And so I just felt a good connection with all the players that we had. I think coaching, like I said, my dad's coached pretty much his entire life. Once he stopped playing baseball, he got into coaching. And so I don't know if it runs in our blood or what, but, I just enjoyed it a lot. I knew that I liked it from doing that. And when I was playing, I was preparing to be a coach my whole career. I got tons of binders upstairs in my office that, after every practice I would come back, or game, I'd come back and I'd jot down things that our coaches said that I think could help. And so I've kind of been preparing for it, pretty much my whole playing career. I was preparing for being a coach at some point.
You have brothers or sisters?
I have a younger sister.
Okay. Gotcha. So your dad was a coach, and, he obviously got the baseball bug from him and everything. Yep. So now you had a story when you moved from Lake Elsinore in Single A, I think. And I'm a stalker on your, not comment on your thing. But anyway, you moved to San Antonio. There was a story behind that was kind of funny. What was so you're in Single A and then you're going to Double A San Antonio? Yep. And what happened? I thought that was pretty funny. If you want to share with us.
As far as my car, is that?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So one thing when you're playing, when you get called up, it happens really quickly. So I was in Lake Elsinore, California, in Single A, and you just come in after the game, and the manager says, "Hey, you're flying out to wherever you're going." For me, it was San Antonio, Texas. And I said, okay. But I had my car. One of the worst it's not an investment. One of the worst things I did when I got drafted, I bought a really expensive sports car. I thought it would be cool. Terrible idea. So I had it in California, and now I need to get that along with all my belongings to Texas. So I fly out, and I ship my car. So I contact a company. They put it on the truck, and they're going to drive it to Texas for me. So when I got to Texas, I waited a few days, and I called the company, and they said, "Oh yeah, it's still going to be a few more days." And so I said, "Okay, no big deal." Well, this went on for like a couple of weeks, and I'm saying, "Where is I thought someone took the car and I was never going to see it again." Eventually, it showed up. So they dropped it off at my apartment. I was actually at a game, and the guys called me, and I said, "Just drop it off at my apartment. This is the address." So when I got back there, I opened the car, I opened my trunk, and everything's stolen except for like a couple of pieces of clothing that I guess they didn't think was cool to wear. They didn't like my style, but they left a few things of clothing, but everything was gone. I had a TV, I had suits, I had video games, I had everything. And And so then I went in the car, I started up, and I noticed they put over 800 miles on the thing. So basically, I mean, I don't know if they just drove it to Texas or what happened.
Exactly, right. Oh.
So yeah, it was brutal. I contacted the police. I had to go through this whole thing with the company. They kept telling me, they said, I told them, I said, everything's stolen. They said, well, we didn't steal it. I said, but then who did? You had the car. And they said, well, I don't know. Someone must have taken it, you know, when it was up on the truck, someone must have broken in. I said, okay, that could happen. I said, but there's over 800 miles on it. Like, how did that happen?
Right.
He said, wasn't us. I don't know. Someone must have taken it down and drove it. I said, they drove it for 800 miles and put it back on the truck? That makes no sense. But yeah, nothing came of it. I got some insurance money for all the stolen stuff. Right. But yeah, I was every day after that, when I drove my car, anything that went wrong, which with this car, everything went wrong for some reason, I always blamed it on those guys. I think they messed something up when they took it for a joyride. It was like Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that, but
how did you offload that car? Just finally traded it in, or what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I ended up selling it. My uncle worked for Ford, and so he took it and he ended up getting rid of it for me. And then I ended up, I will never make that mistake again and do that. So. And
don't forget, this whole time you still got to play baseball. That's literally what you're.
Sure.
You can't just focus on this. You know, in between innings, you still got to play So. Right. When you're in the minors, I mean, literally, they just say, Matt, you got a game tomorrow night in San Antonio, and you just got to. I mean, what do? You just go back to your hotel or something like that and say, put everything in.
Yep.
You got to get your own plane. Does a team do it, or how? I mean,
so the team will set you up with the flight. You take as much as you can take. Because I had my car, I put a bunch of the stuff in there. Right. If you don't have a car, then you're going to just, you're going to fly out, and then you're going to have to figure out a way to get, a bunch of your stuff, out of there. So at the time I was living in California, you live with host families. So I had a family, I'd moved into their house. And so I had a lot of stuff in there. So, but yeah, it's crazy on the road, especially in the minor leagues. And there's certain guys that, you can jump around multiple times a year. For me, it was always, luckily, I get called up, go once, and that was it. But, I played with guys that go up and down, up and down, up and down. And so it's a lot of, it's a hectic summer.
I mean, how can you, I sit there, I just always liked minor leagues. When I was growing up, we had the main guys who were the AAA team for the Cleveland Indians in the International League, which was insane to have Old Orchard Beach. We had a minor league, a AAA team. Now they got the Portland Sea Dogs. I think they're actually double A for the Sox. Anyway, minor league's always been intriguing to me. But I always said, man, how the hell you go from here to here to here to here to here? I just and if you're married, what does your wife do? I mean, so your now wife, she's back in Massachusetts living at home while you're doing this. I mean, she's not with you this whole time, right? Or
so she lived with me for 1 year. Okay. It was actually in 2010. She came out to spring training with me in Arizona. We drove my car from Boston all the way to Arizona. And that was the year actually that I thought I had a decent chance to make the big league team. I'd already been in the major leagues. I thought I could make it that year. Our plan was hopefully to go to San Diego and just live there and play. I ended up breaking my hand about a week to go in spring training, and I spent that whole summer in Arizona rehabbing. So it was just bad luck for her because she had developed a lot of friendships with a lot of the wives and the girlfriends of my buddies, but I never got to play with them that year because when I broke my hand, they all went and played, and I stayed back and rehabbed. And so she spent the whole summer in our apartment with no friends. I was at the field rehabbing all day, and when that season ended, she said, I think you can go out and play, and I'm going to stay back home and be back here with her family. So, and then she'd come out once a month, but that was probably better than, without any friends as a player. A lot of people don't realize it too. I'm at the park. Right. I'm at the park for 10, 11, 12 hours a day. It's a long day. You're traveling a lot. And so, you're not at home that much. If your wife is out there, your girlfriend's out there with you, you don't get to see them a whole lot anyway during the season. It's just a busy season.
When you're a week away, you're having a good spring training, you're feeling pretty good, then a play happened and it just broke your wrist? And what happened?
Yeah, so I had been having a lot of pain in my hand and wrist for about a year. Okay. It was getting progressively worse. Through the x-rays and the tests, they said it doesn't look like anything's broken. We just see inflammation. And so they wanted me to try to continue to play through it. I got to the point where towards the end of spring training, I mean, I couldn't swing anymore. I vividly remember I went into the trainer's room and I said, listen, I can't do it. Like they were giving me medication to try to just, get rid of the pain, numb the pain, whatever. And I just said, it feels like I'm getting, stabbed in the wrist every time I swing. I don't think I can do it anymore. And then we actually went for a second opinion. So we went to a different doctor. And when I went there, they said, yeah, you've got a broken hand when I got there. So then, then I got the surgery.
Right. Thanks. What, man, that's got to suck. But apparently you knew something was going wrong because the pain was pretty bad. How about the year you like the first time you made the majors? Was that out of spring training, or was that like the 40-man call-up, whatever it's called, in September, something like that, or what was?
So I got called up. I was in AAA in 2008. I finished the season in AAA, and then I got called up at the end of the year to the major leagues.
Did you know you're going to get called up, or is it, or what? You know what I'm saying?
It's actually, I was extremely surprised. It was the worst year of my life, statistics-wise. So that was my second full season as a professional player. The season before, I had the best year of my life. I was rated, I think, the number 2 prospect in the organization. In my mind, I was going to play 20 years in the major leagues. Yeah. But in 2008, I was horrible. I literally almost forgot how to hit. I was hitting like 160 something for a lot of the year. And long story, I won't get into it, but I kind of figured things out at the end of the year. I finished that season hitting 220, I think. I had absolutely zero idea that I would get called up. And I remember when the last game of AAA season ended, our manager called me into the office. I went in there and I just thought he was going to basically tell me how bad of a year it was. And he said, hey man, he said, I know it's been a tough year, but you've done a great job the last month or so, pulling things together. And, I just want to say congratulations. You're going up to the big leagues. And I was in total shock when that happened.
So how about the year before? Were you in total shock that you weren't called up?
So the year before, actually, I was doing so well. I was still really young. I was only 22. I got drafted at 21. And so I just turned 22, so I was still considered really young. Okay. And I didn't think I was going to go up until I remember late that year. I was in AA, and our general manager came into town, and I remember people talking in the dugout or in the clubhouse and starting to say like, hey, you're going to go up. They're here to watch you and all this stuff. And I didn't play great the end of the year. That's kind of when my swing started to kind of get away from me. And so I wasn't super surprised. If I got called up, I would have been like, yeah, it makes sense. I'm doing great. But when I didn't get called up, I also said, I'm still really young. Yeah. I had actually transitioned to a new position. So I was a third baseman. I was drafted as a third baseman. And that season they moved me to second. And I wasn't great at second yet. So I knew I needed to kind of iron things out over there. So I wasn't super surprised when I didn't get called up that year.
So in between, 2007 and 8 in the off season, you're not getting paid. And you're not, I know you got a good sign bonus and all that, but still, you're not getting paid. I just, we got a minor league team up here in Gwinnett. They used to be the Gwinnett Braves, now the Gwinnett Strikers. And I'm stunned how little these guys make. It's insane, man. I'm sitting there, and I know you did a video where they got supposedly they're going to get a pay raise and whatnot. But I say the only reason, in my opinion, the only reason they're doing that is because they're going to let go of a lot of teams. But how much, like when you're in AA, dude? You're getting paid what'd you say, like $2,000 a month or something? It's insane.
Yeah, not even. Yeah. So it basically it depends on the level that you're at. I would say for most players that are in the minor leagues that aren't experienced minor leaguers, not like the guys that go to the big leagues and then they come back down. Yeah. Those guys get paid a decent amount of money. But for when you first sign, if you don't get a signing bonus, which not a lot of guys do, the top, let's just say the top 5 rounds get paid a good amount of money, but there's a lot of guys that maybe get, $1,000, and some guys don't get anything. Yeah. So in the minor leagues, my first year in the minor leagues, I got paid, I think it was like $1,100 a month. And you only get paid in season. You don't get paid in spring training. So you get paid basically April, May, June, July, and August. It's a 5-month minor league season. So yeah, even in AAA, my first time when I got up to AAA in 2008, here I am, like one step away from the major leagues, and my salary in AAA I think was $2,300 a month, a 5-month season. What's that? A little over $11,000.
Yeah, crazy.
But you've got to pay for your I had to pay for my apartment. So basically, I don't know, rent was probably a little over $1,000 a month. So half of it's going to rent. You've got to pay clubhouse dues. You've got to eat, obviously. So you don't make any money. You probably lose money in a lot of minor league
and you're
places.
playing for free, if not paying to play.
Yeah, most players in the off season have jobs. And I see
back home, they have jobs back where they're from or something like that.
Yeah, so in the 4 or 5 month off season, they'll go and most guys try to do lessons or stuff like that, but some guys just get whatever job they can get for those few months. And I've seen a lot of guys that decided, I can't play anymore because I can't really afford to play, which is amazing to be a professional player and not be able to play because you can't afford to play. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Well, I I just remember sitting there. We go all kinds. We went to Mississippi Braves. We've gone to Rome Braves. We like it. So anyway, my wife likes baseball, minor league baseball too. So we go to all the games. I just remember looking at some of these guys. I was looking at how much, because you see the major leagues, they say this guy's making this guy's making that. And you're like, wow. And I looked up a couple of years ago. I was like, holy crap, these guys are freaking poor. I was stunned, and I follow this stuff. I was stunned. I was like, I don't know how these guys do it. Hey, let me ask you a question. How does it work with the Latin players? So you got a lot of these guys who don't speak English. I think. We're all American. We can speak the language. Going from Lake Elsinore to San Antonio is a pain in the butt, but we know how to speak. How do these guys do it? Is there segregation in the clubhouse? How do these guys? I don't know how that works for these guys. Especially on top of that, they're going to freaking Kingsport, Tennessee and stuff. It's just, how does that, it's going to be tough for everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing. It is a tough lifestyle. It's a tough transition for any player. But then you take a player, especially at least with the Padres, and every organization is a little different, but with the Padres, in the lower minors, so my first year in short season A-ball where I first went when I got drafted, there was probably about almost half the team that couldn't speak English. They just spoke Spanish. And so those guys are mostly young players that signed, and they don't get drafted, those players. They sign free agent deals, but a lot of them weren't signing for very much money at all. They just want to get to America to hopefully be the one. And it's not a high percentage, it's a low percentage, but they love baseball. They want to try to get to the major leagues. And so, they show up. They have no money. They're getting paid nothing. A lot of those players I used to see, they'd always send money back to their families back in wherever it was, Dominican or Mexico or Colombia or wherever. They would live. I remember multiple times a year that we'd get a team meeting, and they would tell the managers would say, guys, you cannot cook in the bathtubs of the hotels, because players, they were trying to cook chicken and stuff they were making their own stoves in bathtubs because they couldn't, they were trying to live as cheaply as possible because they just couldn't afford meals. And so, and they don't speak the language, and it's really, really, really difficult. I can't imagine what it's like to be a player that doesn't get a big signing bonus, doesn't sign as a free agent for much money, and tries to make it as a professional baseball player in America. I can't imagine how difficult that must be.
And so the coaches don't speak Spanish, and if imagine there's got to be some interpretation. Someone's got to be interpreted. If the coach says, "I want you at short, not second base," there's someone there who can speak the language, I guess, right?
So typically what you see, especially in the lower minors, is typically at least one coach or the manager on those teams is bilingual.
Okay.
That is something that I think they make sure of. If you want to, I think that's actually really key. If someone wants to become a coach, a professional coach, being able to speak both Spanish and English is a huge, huge quality to have, because they need that at the younger levels. But it's definitely difficult. Just from me trying to talk, I remember when I played infield, and my shortstop was Jesus Lopez, didn't speak a lick of English, and we have to talk sometimes about strategy a little bit,
Right.
and it's a lot of hand language, and it's trying to point in and all this stuff. I mean, it can be tough. I took Spanish throughout high school and in college, so I knew a little bit, not enough to have a full conversation, but I could usually talk a little bit if I needed to tell them something. And that was actually one of the more interesting parts of it, is that I knew enough English, because you mentioned it. What you usually see is, especially in those levels, you have all the Spanish-speaking players are always off on their own, and then you have all the English-speaking players on their own. And so that's the first team in my life that I played on that I was like, wow, this is weird. It's like half the team is doing their own thing and half is over here. And that was for meals. It was for just in the clubhouse. It was everything. So I tried to use a little bit of the Spanish I knew to try to make friends with some of those players. And I actually did. And I don't think a lot of them were used to it, because, and I don't blame the English speaking players. They can't talk to them. So it's really difficult to make friends. So I always tried to. I used to take, my friend Chad Huffman and I used to take out a few of the players to eat. We used to take Jesus to Italian restaurants. He'd never eaten Italian in his life. And we tried to get him to, we taught him how to say spaghetti and meatballs and stuff. So it was, those were always fun times. And I mean, as much as sometimes I make it seem like the minor leagues is terrible because I give some insight into the lack of pay and the travel conditions and everything. But in all honesty, I mean, it was a lot of fun too. I mean, there's a lot of memories that I had that I really enjoyed.
Hell, when I got out of the high school, went in the Army, man, in the infantry, it's like 4 years is hell, but it's also, I'd never trade that for, you don't get paid squat. You do all kinds of crappy stuff. You're hating it, but you look back and like, I survived. I'm better for it. It's the same thing in the minor leagues, but I don't know how these guys who, if you played major leagues for a couple of years and they get sent down, I don't know how. I mean, obviously they're going to be paid a little bit more, but now they're, some of these guys, like you were 21, you're probably the older guy in single A baseball for a lot of these guys, and you got some guy who's like 28 years old with a wife and 2 kids back home, and he's used to that's the when you when just also too when you were playing and you see a guy progress above you. I don't know if this ever happened, but did you say, man? I mean, in some ways, you got to be jealous. In some ways, you got to be saying, like, oh, that could be – I mean, you know what I'm saying? So let's say you're double A and you're playing next to freaking, Mariano Rivera, and you knew him. I'm just using that. But just say it's Mario Rivera, and all of a sudden he gets called up. You're like – now he's, kicking butt and taking names. And you're like, oh, man. Like, you got to feel jealous in a way, but feel good at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Did you ever see anything like that happen where some guy just – took off and you're like, damn, that's good, but I'm still kind of sucks. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I wish that was me. So I think it depends on, there's all different types of players. There are certain players that are like that. I do think, I think the minor leagues does become a little bit more about the individual, whereas the big leagues is more about team. And I mean, the big leagues is a business. You got to win, or else, if you don't win, the whole team's going to get released, right? Or you're going to, you might never play again. And so in the minor leagues, it's a little bit more, not so much, although they want you to win, but they want you to develop. And so it does become, I don't want to say selfish, but players are looking out, I think most players, for their best, for their own self-interest. At the same time, me personally, I don't know if it's just my personality or whatever, but I don't remember ever having a guy get called up or a guy get promoted over me and me being like, that should have been me.
Right.
I can't believe he's going up there. Because when I got called up, honestly, when I got called up from AAA to the major leagues, I said, that guy should have probably been called up over me, and that guy should have been, and that guy should have been. So I was on the other side of it. So I always tried to make sure that I never was jealous or said, man, that should be me instead of that guy right there. Me personally, but I'm sure there's certain players that aren't feeling that way, and every time someone got called up, they got all pissed off.
When you got, your first game in San Diego, you're like, were you just like, like you see that movie with, I can't remember, the guy from Houston, I forget anyway, but you walk in the major league, you're like, holy crap. I mean, were you just like, this is nuts, you know what I'm saying? Or did you feel that way? Oh, man.
Yeah, I definitely did. I was nervous. I think most people always assume that players that get to the major leagues were always meant, like they were just born to play in the major leagues. They always knew they were going to get there. Like, I don't think that's the case for a lot of players. And some of them, there's certain players that have always been the best and they knew they were getting there. But most players, when I was playing Little League or even high school and even college at times, I never thought like, oh man, I'm going to play in the big leagues one day. Right. I tell stories all the time. When I was getting recruited to play in college, there was a point where I was just so happy that I got the opportunity to get a scholarship to play college baseball. I thought that was unbelievable. So at that point, I'm not thinking, oh man, I'm going to play in the major leagues one day. So when I finally got there, it was definitely like that. It was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here right now. This is unbelievable. You're playing against players that you've watched your whole life. I made my debut against the Dodgers, their starting left fielder was Manny Ramirez, who was my favorite player almost of all time. They had Nomar Garcia-Parra on that team. I idolized Nomar my whole childhood. So anyone that says like, yeah, I walked in the big leagues and I just, it was like every other day for me, I think most of them are lying. That's not the case. I'm facing Greg Maddux.
I say your first hit's on Greg Maddux. You got to hit on Greg Maddux, man. I mean, it's Greg Maddux, and you're. I mean, that's kind of. I mean, you've got to be sitting there thinking this is crazy, but at the same time, you got to perform, or else you're freaking. Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Tell me the story about Vin Scully. This is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life on the defensive thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the embarrassing story. Yeah, I hear that all the time. So, so really early in it was like the second inning, I think. There was a ball hit over my head. I get a lot of crap for this. Little ball hit over my head, and I'm running back. And honestly, it was a tough play. I mean, I know it wasn't the greatest defender in the world, but it was kind of a tough play.
I saw the video. I saw your video, and I said, that's not an easy play to make, Vin. Pipe down. Yeah. Like saying, Vin, you get out there, big guy. You know what I'm saying? Jeez.
I know. So the ball goes over my head. I try to make like an over-the-shoulder catch. I can't really get it. I stumble because I'm running hard. Will Venable, our center fielder's coming in, and so we kind of get tangled up. The ball rolls past him, and Vince says, I don't know the exact word. He said, "What an embarrassing play by the Padres, right?" And that is why they are in last place. And like I'd been up for like 10 minutes, and he's calling me. Well, he wasn't calling me, but technically he was calling me embarrassing. And so that's like the big joke now. Every time people are talking about stuff, they always say, "What?" Anytime I do something, they go, "What an embarrassing play, Matt."
Well, he said it again later on, if I'm not mistaken, in the game. Didn't he refer back to that? Like,
well, they kept referring back to that. Yeah, he couldn't get over that play for some reason, which I don't know. But and that's one of the things about the major leagues. I made another video about when I was in Milwaukee. I made a horrible throw for my first error. I got a cutoff and I threw it over the catcher's head. And, that was embarrassing for sure. Then I get home, or I get back to the hotel. I'm watching ESPN, and the play comes up, and I've got to shut the TV off because I'm like, I don't want to rewatch this. And that's when I was like, man, this is going to be rough in the major leagues. If I've got to come home and watch, myself screwing up every day on TV, it's difficult.
Maybe you stole Vin Scully's girlfriend or something like that.
Might have.
Maybe he had it in for you because I was like, dude, Vin. I mean, because even I was watching, I was like, all right, come on, man, we get the point, Vin. My goodness.
Right.
Go back to Kirk Gibson and we can talk about that. Now, so you've been doing YouTube and we'll get out of here in just a second. You got a couple more minutes. You up against it?
Yep. Nope. It's fine.
So you've been doing YouTube. I think your first video was like 8, 9, 10 years ago, something like that. I mean, a long time ago, man. So if you were still playing professional ball when you started doing YouTube, right?
Yeah, so I started my first YouTube video. I think it was like 2008 or 9. I did it when I was playing, and I not to the degree I do now. I mean, now I do one video every day, but back then I was doing mostly just instructional videos, trying to help out my dad's travel ball teams, trying to help out players. I used to get emails and stuff. Hey, Matt, how do you hit a curveball and stuff like that. And so I just started putting them up on YouTube. I'd give it advice for those type of things that I had learned in my career. And that's how it was for a while. And then a couple of years ago, people started asking me, what's it like flying in the major leagues? What's it like taking bus trips? So I threw up a couple videos like that, and those videos really took off. Yeah. And that's when I realized people were interested in this stuff, and not a lot of players were talking about it. No one really knew what life was like. The minor league salary stuff. Not a lot of people knew that. And so I started doing videos like that, just answering people's questions. I'd say, write in, shoot me an email, let me know what you got. And I spent a full year probably answered everybody's questions.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where the channel really started to take off. And I still do that. I still do instructional videos. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun just talking baseball. That's what I enjoy doing.
And then you did a video on, you do the streaming on the gaming, and you did a video on your first hit. It was like with the same kind with, I think, Manny Ramirez and left. That was pretty cool. I was like, hey, that was pretty fun. And then that was a good time. I mean, it's fun, man. People most of us don't have the skill set to be, hell, even college baseball, never mind professional, never mind MLB. So it's always fun to hear because you don't hear about that side.
Sure.
One question. So, they're doping you up to get you rid of the pain. And doping up, too strong a word. You don't have to get too deep in this, but I mean, that stuff could be seriously addictive. So I'm just curious, and I think football maybe more so than baseball. I don't know. But do some guys get hooked on this crap? Because, I mean, that pain relief stuff can be addictive as all can be. And I'm just wondering, as you're getting older, I'm 49 and I got rotator cuff. Now my knees giving out. As you get old, and I don't take anything for it, thankfully, but I gotta think there's gotta be you gotta see some people that are just getting hooked on stuff they might not should be hooked on, if that makes sense, Matt. Did you see
Sure.
that?
So I never saw that personally in baseball. I never experienced it. I know football. I mean, I've heard stories of football, and those guys are, it's like getting in a car wreck every Sunday for those guys. I mean, it's pretty bad for them. For me, I honestly, I don't even know what I was taking. I don't think it was serious stuff. I mean, I never took it and said, man, I need more of that. Or I just remember that whatever they gave me made my wrist feel a little bit better for that game. But it wasn't like I was doing that all the time. That was more towards like in spring training, just trying to get through it and seeing if we could figure out a way to make this feel better. And when it didn't, I mean, that's when I realized that, it was time to try to get surgery or do something else. But yeah, personally, I never saw that stuff in baseball. I'm sure it's happened. But I didn't experience it.
That's good. I'm actually I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that. That's fantastic because that's a big. I mean, I hate the fact that there's another guy in Boston I follow who does like punk rock music and he was literally he got hooked on dope, which led to heroin because one of his friends gave him, I forgot what it was, and it just made him like, whoa, this stuff's awesome. Where's this been all my life? And he thought it was just a pain reliever. Now, I mean, he literally talks all the time about his experience in terms of doing like hardcore punk rock while he's like, hooked on stuff. And it's just this, you're like sitting there thinking, damn, that's just bad. Did you ever go to you ever go see the Red Sox anymore or anything like that? Or just, you ever go to games?
Yeah. So I'll go to Red Sox games. My son enjoys baseball and, he is a huge Mookie Betts fan. So he's a little bit upset that Mookie will no longer be with the Sox, but we go a couple times a year, nothing crazy, but my schedule, especially during the summer, is so busy with playing and traveling and everything that sometimes it's hard to get to games. But we go as much as we can, and it'll definitely be different. He still doesn't really understand why we're not, why there isn't baseball on. I think he thinks that we're going to be outside playing games soon. So, which hopefully we are. I don't know, but
man. Hopefully, it looks like things are starting to get back. I remember when I was a kid, Carlton Fisk got traded, I think, or a free agent to the White Sox. I'll never forget that. It's like, huh? I mean, I was like, it just seemed weird. I could see your boys say, what is going on? My whole life, because everything when you're a kid is just sports. You have no life except sports. I was like, why is Carlton Fisk on the White Sox? Something has gone wrong in my world. You know what I'm saying? So I can imagine what your kids think in that regard for sure.
Absolutely.
What's the future hold? And we'll get you out of here. But what's the future hold? So you're doing, obviously, you're enjoying what you're doing. You got your YouTube channel, which is, again, links in the show notes. And keep doing the story. People love stories, man. Stories. Sure. People eat that stuff up. Keep doing that for sure. What's what do you see yourself in 5-10 years? I mean, it sounds like your freaking business is booming, dude. I mean, that's fantastic. But what says you in the better half for 5-10 years from now?
Yeah. So I get asked this question a lot, and we've gotten to the point with Antonelli Baseball where everything that's happening right now, I'm extremely happy with it. Like we're able to make a nice living doing something I love to do. I'm never going to become rich off of doing this, which I never wanted to. I didn't intend to get into it to do that. And so my thing is, if I can make a living and support my family coaching, helping kids,
Yeah.
being around young baseball players, and then have fun with this YouTube stuff,
Yeah.
that's honestly what I want to do. And so I would guess that in 5-10 years, I'll probably be doing the exact same thing, unless the Red Sox call me and say, hey, you want to manage the team this year? Maybe I'll jump at that. But other than that, I think we're going to continue to do what we're doing. I do it with our coaches or some of my good friends. My dad coaches with me. I help out at my old high school that I used to coach at. So it's all things are good, and I'm really enjoying myself.
That's awesome. And young men need positive role models, Matt, role models. And I can just tell with your attitude that you're a humble guy, but obviously got a skill set that I think a lot of guys, you don't have to be, like freaking, the Kobe Kai guy, whatever that guy, you know what I'm saying, with the first Karate Kid, like, there's more to the game in any kind of endeavor than just freaking win at all costs. And I can tell you're a guy like that who, it just is good stuff. I imagine the young men that you're training are getting a good experience from it for sure. All right, this is my dog. He's telling me he's got to go poop. Matt, I appreciate it, brother. You're a good guy. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Like I said, hold on just one second. I'll stop the recording.